Nika, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Betty. Okay, so we're going to start from the top. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Nika Sherrill, and this is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Register for the Healing Through Pleasure series starting in March with Queen Reverend Mutima Imani and spiritual guide Asara Sahai. This 6-week journey will allow you to discover the power of your erotic energy and expand your pleasure. You can get tickets on Eventbrite and learn more at nikasherrells.com. So everyone out there, we want to hear from you. Please send in your questions, your comments, anything that you want to talk about here with us on the ItCast. We really want to engage in a dialogue. So you can post those questions or comments in the chat, or you can send them to nikasherrells@gmail.com to have them answered on the show. And anonymity is fair for all. So if you want to remain anonymous, please put that in your note. All right, subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this work with your community. And let's go ahead and dive in. This week's topic is Real Talk on Impact Play. And today in the booth, we have Deborah Kat. Deborah Kat was born and raised in San Francisco, surrounded by the beautiful California coastline and alternative culture. She leads monthly classes exploring the edges of sexuality and the spirit, combining her diverse background in Tantra, massage, and BDSM to support men and couples in clearing shame and having a satisfying relationship and masterful sex. She launched a podcast called the Better Sex Podcast. Right in our vein. She firmly believes in the transformational power of desire and looks forward to utilizing her knowledge and experience in support of deeper surrender into bliss for all. She is trained in the Somatica method, a certified Tantra educator, a Bondassage trainer, and Orgasmic Meditation desire coach. Last but not least, she is the SF Bay Area host for Tantra Seed Date. All right, Deborah, join us on the show.
Hello, I am so excited to be here. Oh my God. So first of all, thank you for this amazing platform. I really, so I took a moment to kind of check out what you were up to, and I'm just so excited to be a part of this great adventure. There's so many great interviews that you've already done, and I am honored to be amongst them. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm so grateful that you're here. This is a topic that we've wanted to cover for over a year now. And when I was at your workshop, I was like, this is incredible. Like, let's take this to the streets, basically. Like, let's let everyone know. So I'm very thrilled. All right. So tell us why you chose to do the show.
Ooh, well, I chose to do the show because you are amazing and your energy is fabulous. And I love the message that you have. I love having diversity in conversation. I think sexuality is the seat of our creative power, right? If we can like harness that, that sexual power, if we can actually be in conversation with our genitals, if you will, with that power center, all sorts of things are possible, including the creation of life, right? So it's like, this is a place where I really feel honored. I feel seen. I get to be part of a bigger group. We get to like raise the volume. We get to like, dim down the volume and the voices that are shaming us and telling us that we're not enough, that we can't do that, like, the way we love, the way we have sex is wrong. Like let's turn that down just a little bit and celebrate like all sorts of different kinds of pleasure and connection and love. And I really feel like, the bottom line of my mission, I'm really getting this more and more, but the bottom line is really to help create more love, more lovers inside the bedroom and out, right? If you can actually love that neighbor that makes you a little crazy, we're all in a better place. And, here's the thing. It's like, you never know when you're going to be called on to step forward and support somebody else. Right. And, in terms of like just talking a little bit about our topic for today, it's like we all impact each other. Right. So if I walk out my door and I see that neighbor, the neighbor across the street, I've got one of those neighbors and he is across the street.
Uh-oh.
But like I have the choice. I can either see him as like he's just doing the best he can, or I can see him as the like nutty guy. And both are true, right?
That otherizing, like that we're not, we're not the same, like you're different from me. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. Like we're all having a human experience. So yeah. We're able to have that like connection, and yeah, it's powerful, like to be able to support and love someone without having all of the context, just the fact that they're human, they deserve to be respected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you never know. It's like, I remember, so I've lived here about 20 years, and about 5 years ago, I was having a really, really bad day, and he gave me a plant, right? And it just changed everything.
Aww.
It was so funny because it was like, he was working in his garden, and he was like, and the funny thing is the way he did it was like, he said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically, your yard needs some love. And he gave me this plant.
Oh.
And so I promptly killed it, but
that's the love. Like that's
right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Okay. So I'm so glad that you're here. I want to double back to that whole, the impact that we have on ourselves. So you mentioned like being in conversation with our genitals. Like, I love that. That is really huge. When you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I started talking to my genitals a few months ago. How wonderful is this? And like, I really had to introduce myself to her, and she introduced herself to me. And I was like, okay, it's a growing relationship. So I love that you brought that up.
Absolutely. Like our relationship with our body, with our body in general, is not necessarily one that we cultivate. There are those of us that, we go to the gym, we work our bodies, but we don't really necessarily say thank you. Like, I'm super lucky. I'm able-bodied. Everything works. Everything's in the places that it needs to be. I've been pretty active my whole life, but as I'm aging, there's definitely parts of my body that are kind of like, we need a little more love. We need a little more attention. A hot bath would be really good. Some ice would be nice, or, yes. Or, babe, you've been in the, my body doesn't always call me babe. It's more like, bitch, we've been in the house for 5 days. I need to be outside. You need to take my ass around the block. Actually, no, you need to take me dancing.
Ooh.
Right. And I can really feel like the difference between, when I get up in the morning and, it's interesting. One of the positive experiences I had with COVID was, during lockdown, essentially, my partner and I actually started a practice of walking together. And we're very lucky. We live in Santa Cruz, and there's a lot of beautiful places to walk. But it was actually something that I didn't know that I always wanted. Because when we walk together, there's a way that our bodies are moving and that our bodies are communicating with each other. And it's interesting, if you walk with somebody, most of the time your bodies will communicate, you'll slow down or speed up, or you'll get into that rhythm.
Yeah, walking in tandem and such.
Exactly. And then there's some folks where you walk with them and it's like, hey dude, you need to slow down, I got the short legs. And that's a communication that needs a little bit more work. But yeah, so walking's amazing, and having that communication with my body, and knowing that I can impact my body. If I stretch, if I take it for a walk when it says, hey, like if I listen to it the first time, it says, hey babe, it's time for a walk.
And then louder and louder and louder.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's so real. I did this workshop. It was actually back during Love Skills, and there was this whole conversation around creating self-trust. So we were like, the instructions were to be in contact with your body, but like figure out like how to approach your body in a genuine and slow manner.
Mm-hmm.
There was instruction to like do this in different places, and one of them was the heart. So I'm there and I'm like, I reach for my heart and I get stopped like right here. And there's like this energy where I actually couldn't it was a lot of stuff built up there. And emotionally it took me like the 10 minutes of the exercise just to be able to like touch my heart. And like create that like experience and bond from a really gentle and soft place. And by the end of it, I was like hugging myself like, okay, I love you. I love you. And it just, it makes such a difference to be able to connect. Yeah.
And to go at your body's speed. Like, hearing you say that, I'm so, I'm really glad that you didn't just like, that you actually listened and took the time that your heart needed to open and to feel into each other there.
Yeah, going at the right speed. Yeah, that's beautiful. Like that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's funny. Most people, when they hear impact play, they think about, two bodies coming together and colliding, or a body and something else coming together and colliding. And that's great. That's part of it. Like, there is nothing. Well, okay, maybe there's a few things, but like a great spanking is, yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
And what I mean by a great spanking is a great spanking is when the hand and the tush are both lit up and having a good time.
There it is. And you're present. There's consent and awareness. Because there's a whole lot of context of spanking.
Mm-hmm.
And when you begin to understand each body experiences pleasure differently, it's just a sensation. It's a way that does it for that person. And the thing that I anyway, total side note, but one of the things I get challenged by is like that punishment spanking.
Oh yeah. It's very, 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 very important in the conversations that you're having about, about what we're going to do, how we're going to play together, that you ask a couple of really important questions. And one of them is, what is your relationship to spanking? And having a conversation where, was it used as punishment? Was it used, as a negative, and another thing that I really, is important in that conversation is, what is the languaging, not just about like, is it punishment or correction or whatnot, but like, do you want to be a bad girl? Or do you want to be my good girl? Right? Because it's a completely different thing, and it could be, oh, look at you. Aren't you a bad girl? Or it could be like, oh, my good girl wants to make me happy. Look at you. Aren't you a good girl? You know, I mean, and it has a very different feel. And
Yeah.
depending on your background and your context, either of those things, you know, can land either way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, for me, I grew up as a total juvenile delinquent, right? So I was always being called bad. So when somebody calls me their good girl, or when they tell me that, like, you know, it would make them happy, and they'd know how, you know, powerful I was if I just, you know, took 3 more little spanks for daddy.
Yes.
or whatever.
And what's great about it, what's great is like, we're talking about the overall impact, you know, like there's, like you said, there's that like physical collide, but there's also like, how does this land emotionally? How does this land intellectually? How are we creating this space in which we're engaging together? And I want to be completely 100% clear for anybody out there listening, the term play does include the concept of sex, and sex is not always inherent in play. So there's a whole container around what we're talking about, and I don't want you to be confused.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that sometimes, you know, especially for people who are socialized as women, we have this really interesting relationship with our sexual energy and our sexuality. And sometimes it can be very much our power center. And sometimes it can absolutely be the place where, you know, we are held hostage by, you know. And so when you take sex off the table for play, and I want to be clear, I don't mean, you know, that sensuality is out. I don't mean that like orgasm and pleasure is out, but I mean, you know, whatever it is that you're defining as sex, and for most of us, it's, you know, penis and vagina sex. Not all, but
No. Conceptually, that's how people relate to it. Yeah, whether that's what they do or not.
But when that is taken off the table, there is often a much bigger box to fill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's actually something, at least for me, super hot when my male-bodied partner is able to say, yeah, I am fully turned on, I am fully in my power, I am fully engorged, and it's right here, and you don't get it. You know, like I get to see that masterfulness, and I get to see that fullness, and he doesn't have to do anything about it, and I don't have to do anything either. I just feel like even just thinking about it, my body is completely turned on, and you know, I've got chills.
I love what you just said. Like, you don't get it, like, you know, that whole beautiful situation. And where I thought you were going to go is, I don't have to have it. Like, I'm totally turned on and I don't have to have it, versus I'm totally turned on and you don't get to get it. It's like there's a whole different psychological situation, and even a like personal, like confidence situation too, where it's like, this is not inherently yours. And like the, you don't have to have it is the side of like, well, like, you know, you don't have to take it, it's here. And so there's a really interesting, like, psychological thing that I'm hearing behind that.
Yeah, well, I feel like for me, you know, I know that like once, generally speaking, once a male-bodied person is up and ready, like he's mine. Like I own that shit. And I will say this is because, in part, you know, there's a training that says, you know, for male-bodied people in particular, I'm aroused, I need to do something with it. It needs to go somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And for you know, for me anyway, like I know that once that happens, like I've got some tools, I've got some techniques, I've got some tricks, you know, like it's going to be we're on.
Yeah.
So like to have somebody say yes, and and then just have all of that running through my own body is really powerful. Like there's a place where it's like the surrender, like there's a surrender that happens there when my partner is so in his power that he's like, yeah, it's here, I know you want it.
And like so that's great, because one of the things is in the gender male female gender paradigm, there's always this concept that like the woman is supposed to be alluring and like no, like chase me and all that jazz, and it's like there is no construct that says that has to be a feminine behavior or that women are the only ones who get to do that.
Oh yeah, and I feel like it's that construct. Like I believe that there is a place in all of us that wants to worship, right?
I can agree.
And there is a part of us that wants to be worshiped, right? And there are ways in which are acceptable worship and not, and just like being like, so first of all, I should say I am a complete and utter switch, meaning that there are people who I should be licking their boots, and there are people that need to be down on their knees licking mine, and that is just the order of the world. it's like, and I don't always know who or what that's going to be, because it is truly an energetic experience. It is truly, it can be in a masculine body, a feminine body. It can be like, there's just like, what is the real dynamic here, right? How are we impacting each other? Some people will impact me in, some people are a heart connection. Some people are an energetic connection. Some people are just, they are full-on sexual experience, and it's like being open to what that is, to being impacted, to truly being impacted instead of thinking I know, right? I cannot tell you how often. I cannot tell you how often the person that I least expected to be able to bring it was the person who, I'm like, oh yeah, we got a flat surface. Oh, we got a wall.
Oh my goodness. I love that, because I can totally relate. And that energetic connection, like it goes back to how do you feel in your body? Like you said, like it doesn't have, like whatever body it comes in, at least for myself, like I'm not, I'm so sorry. I'm not like attached to whatever form or shape it is. And that connection, that vibe, like, is this natural? Are we, communicating? Like, is this fluid? And it's so, so good to be able to allow my body to tell me that versus me telling my body what it wants.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the biggest mistakes I see with, with clients, is like, they come to me with this list, right? I need this. And I'm like, okay. And, you can swipe around and you can find somebody who matches the list. But then the real truth is, when you're in person together, when you are in your body, right? When you are grounded, when you are feeling your heart, when you are feeling your genitals, when you have mastered your domain, how does this person impact? Do they have an impact? Like I can't tell you how often I've been with, sounds like the cat.
Making an impact,
making his impact known. But yeah, so, I can't tell you how often, there's been somebody who I thought like they meet my visual aesthetic. And then we get close enough and I'm not feeling much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's, that's it's just like it always surprises me, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And for, I can find, I mean, I have enough going on in my own body that I can find the connection, and I can amplify my own connection, which will generally bring something up in someone else. Because we can energetically impact people. We energetically impact people way before we put our hands on them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
100%. So yeah.
Yeah. So I want to take a second actually out to acknowledge everyone out there watching us. Thank you for showing up to the show. Please post your comments and your chats in whatever place you are so that we can see them. Really delighted to have you with us. And I want to say hi to some of my friends I see posting the chat already. So just go ahead and engage. And so, yeah. Back to the conversation around impact and like energetic connection. One of the things I think about is how when our energy is low, it's a lot easier to bring other people into that space versus like being able to come out of that space like, what am I saying? Like when, like it's what you're surrounded by. Like if you were being impacted by people who are in a particular space, you're going to continue to impact people in that way. So
absolutely. And I think that's really an important thing to think about is it's like, how are we showing up? And who are we letting into our spaces? And what spaces are we going to?
mm-hmm.
There are a lot of communities out there that are about, they're about lack, they're about, commiserating around how,
Oh, woe is me.
well, not just woe is me, but also like, this type of experience, this type of person is X. And that doesn't actually serve, because the truth is that person, we hope, is doing the best they can. Right. If they could do better, they would do better.
Yeah. And people are not finite. Like we're
right.
constantly growing and evolving and shifting and changing, so that like that concept that this person is always going to be this thing that you experience them being at one point, that doesn't allow for the space that they're going to continue to grow and evolve. That's just what people do.
Right. Well, and this is another reason to keep your energy moving, is because here's the thing: when I'm turned on and I got it going on and I reach out to you and you get turned on, right? Like I actually get even more turned on. And then anybody that runs into us today, right? Like this is just going to go out into the world. And, there are definite practices that help you to cultivate. There are definite practices that help you to cultivate your, your calm, grounded presence, your turned on presence, your loving presence. Tony Robbins talks about state changes, and I just mentioned him because he's such a, rah, let's change the state. And that's great. But it's also, the impact of going from grief or upset to, rah is hard on the self. You need to take it slow. You need to acknowledge these different places, right? So if I come into the space and, if I feel into the space and there's grief there, or there's pain there, or whatever, I'm going to hold that.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit with that. I'm not going to take it on. right? Because that's not what we want to do. It's like the last person thing somebody wants to hear when they're grieving or when they're, in that space is, oh, I felt that way too. It's like,
we're not comparing notes here.
exactly. It's like, I want to sit with you and let you be where you need to be. And if and when you're ready, I'm happy to support you in coming out of that. Like, I'm happy to put some music on, and I'm happy to like move with you and, move those things, but it's going to be at your pace. Now, this is a very different experience than coming into a space where it's like complainy and, like we were talking about earlier, like that space, it's like, all right, come on.
Yes.
So, and again, we impact each other. It's like, if I can, whatever, one of the things that I'm really careful about is when I'm about to enter into a room, am I in my space? Am I grounded? Am I on my side of the street? Right. And if I'm not, that's fine. But at least like, I know that, and I can reach out to somebody.
Right.
And I have to say, I don't do this perfectly.
No. That's why I'm having these conversations.
But the more that I can be grounded, the more that I can be in my heart, the more that I can be available for myself, the better I can show up and the more positive impact I can have on others. Right. And I can allow them to impact me.
Yeah. I love what you were saying about the energetically, like before I walk into a space, like, am I grounded? Am I present? Am I available for whatever this is? And what's great is, if you check in and you discover that you're not, then you can be responsible for it. Whether you move forward, whether you don't, like, you can just be responsible for where you are because you know where you are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it works better, in partnership. It's like, my partner and I have been together like 20 some odd years, and we've learned a lot about each other and each other's patterns. And, there are times when I will still like move forward with a force of nature. And about halfway through that, at this point in time, I'll realize, oh, this is not getting what I need to,
Mm-hmm.
But I know, like, if I approach him a little bit slower, a little bit more grounded, I'm going to get more of my needs met. Now, does that mean that he doesn't make me crazy and that, I don't have some feelings about stuff? I absolutely have those feelings. I generally have learned, though, that if before I go to discuss something with him, I need to manage that. I need to like work it out. I need to be able to take some of the charge out of that so that I can show up. He can hear me, he can be impacted, and then he can, respond. Like that way I'm not blasting him. He's not defending.
Right.
He's not reacting. And, there's a place, because basically what I want from him 9 times out of 10 is to come back to connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Bondassage and all those fun things for a little bit. Yay.
Okay. So Bondassage is just what like it sounds like. It's a massage practice with some restraint and sensory deprivation. And let's see, where do I want to start with this? So Bondassage is a practice that was created by a mentor of mine here in Santa Cruz, and she came through. She was kinky in her own life, and she was a massage therapist. So she brought those two loves together, and she created basically a system that if you follow most of these steps, you will get your partner to a desired effect. You will have a desired effect. And what I love about it is it can be sweet and sensual. It can be very, it can be more corporal. It has different flavors in whatever you're bringing to the table. But basically, the overall experience is that when we restrict someone's movement with bondage, when we take away sight, when we control what they hear, there's nowhere for them to go except for in. And
Right.
so it's a really internal, personal journey.
I think about that, like, is meditative space or whatever the happy place is where you're like floating on the top of a mountain and the air is all fresh and there's clouds around. It's like there's that just deep escape, where nothing exists and nothing really matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what's really cool about this is you're doing it while you're having your own experience, you're doing it in connection. Right. And so the person, so you've got a dom or a doer, and you've got a sub, and you've got a surrenderer. I mean, I don't think of it so much as a receiver, although they are generally receiving the impact or whatever the doer is doing. But the dom is actually creating this space and the holding that space for the sub to surrender to. And here's the thing. The sub is never truly surrendering to the person in front of them. They're surrendering, in my experience, they're surrendering to something bigger. Whether it's their own desire or their own connection to their humanity, or perhaps, for those of us that like to play in the spiritual realm, it's that spiritual surrender. And it's using the body to find that spiritual surrender.
Wow. Yeah, I totally get that. And, one of the things that I'm very committed to is the concept that, some people think that sexuality and spirituality are nothing alike. Like sex is not a spiritual experience. And I'm like, it 100% is. Like when you're in tune with your body and in tune with what's going on for you, it can't help but be that like spiritual inspired moment. And what ends up happening is a lot of people are going around operating against their body's needs and intentions, and sex may not feel like a spiritual experience, but yeah, when you surrender and you allow, like that's deeply powerful.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes part of the reason that it's not that amazing experience is you're not having the kind of sex that your body is craving.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, I happen to be somebody that tends to be in the passion realm. I like it. I want to come together. I want to like have that moment. I want it to be, I want it to be messy, and I want it to be like hair flying, sweat flying, messy sheets, and then I want to like have an experience, come down a little bit. At a certain point, I want to say thank you. Maybe I'll see you next week. Like that's the best.
I love that. And what you were talking about with like you're not having the sex that your body desires. I'm like, oh yeah, back when I was having all that heteronormative, like media driven idea of whatever sex is supposed to be. And I was miserable. I was like, this blows. Do I have to do this for the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm. And so, just like, so my partner is much more on the energetic level, right? Which is kind of surprising because he's tall and very much in a masculine body, and does not look like he would be the kind of guy who'd be like, oh, I just want to hold you. But that's his, that is how he feels most nourished by the experience. And I just want to say that, it is my hope that the kind of sex that you're having for your body feels nourishing.
Yeah.
It feels enlivening, it feels nourishing, and, you feel full. Yeah. And you got that ridiculous look on your face. Where you can't help but be like,
to the point of your partner and this idea that he doesn't look like someone who would be into that, like to be able to take that stigma and stereotype off of men and like the assumption, it's like because you look a certain way, then this must be who you are, is so it's demeaning and disrespectful, a whole bunch of other things, but like that's what society puts on us in terms of gender and cultural expectations. So
absolutely. It's fascinating to me. So I work with couples a lot. And what's fascinating to me is how often the biggest problem in their sexuality is they have this idea of what satisfying sex looks like. And it's nothing like it's not at all satisfying for either of them, and much of the time, what I hear, the male partner say is, I want to be seduced. I want to feel like attractive. I want to feel like, I want her to slow down. Which I find really fascinating. And a lot of the women that I'm with are like, yeah, I have 10 minutes between, I just put the kids down. I don't have a call for another 10 minutes. Like, come on.
Take me now.
Right. And, sometimes we'll unwind that a little bit and they're like, oh, yeah, I don't necessarily want the take me piece, but I do want that like connection piece. Like I want your aliveness and my aliveness to come together.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating. And again, so much of it is the, the stereotypes that we have about the expectations we have because of the bodies we're born into, or the societies we're born into, or just like the sexual stories that we've grown up with. I mean, I grew up with Harlequin romances.
Oh.
And Harlequin romances basically say, there's the innocent girl, and then there is the cad, rogue, duke, whatever.
So many opinions. Keep going.
But like there's a power dynamic, and she has no agency. And in the taking of, in the coming together, he knows exactly what to do for her to, feel pleasure and orgasm. And then she runs around the rest of the book being like, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes. Like that's kind of the narrative that I grew up with. Which, kind of makes sense that I've got all these power dynamic things going on.
Okay. Speaking of power dynamics, let's talk about old school versus new school leather.
Oh, okay. So, old school leather, back before the internet, before you could find each other online, we literally would look at the back of a magazine. In San Francisco, it was, the Guardian, and there was a section, a classified section. And you were looking for different code words, right? You're looking for code words. And then there was a magazine, Spectator. I don't know. Were you in the Bay Area around Spectator?
No. Oh, no. Let's just say.
Okay. So Spectator, I mean, it was like you had professional doms on the cover, and in the back again there would be like, you know, these classified ads, and that was how you found each other. And there was community around that, right? So like you would find what was called a munch, or which is where people with interest in leather, BDSM, would come together in non-sexual spaces and just talk. And basically they would be checking each other out, and, you know, does your checklist make my checklist?
Yes.
And most often, if somebody wanted to claim their dominance or to be a top, they would have a mentor, they would start at the bottom. And, you know, it was much more communal. Like there were small clubs where it was like, you know, everybody kind of knew where the club was. And it was like there was a club called Black Sheets. I'm totally dating myself, but Black Sheets back in the 90s in San Francisco. And it was in this amazing house. And the thing about it was everybody showed up, right? You know, gay, straight, queer, kinky, tantric, because it was the sex party, and everybody was welcome because we were all freaks, right? So it was great because, like, you know, it was a three-floor building, and you know, the first floor there was a dungeon, and so you'd get to watch. What was amazing was getting to watch men play together, like that.
I'm just thinking like that's, you know, that's real, because it's such a taboo conversation.
Oh, it's so taboo, and it's so freaking primal. And like there's a way in, yeah, okay. So that was the first floor.
Oh God.
Then you would go upstairs, and it was like there's more of a like sort of kind of an orgy feel to it, you know, very like soft lights, and, you know, there'd be people. And granted, we weren't quite as much on the consent level, we weren't quite as much on those levels, so it's like people would join in and people would watch, and, you know,
free for all,
definitely free for all, lots of oil everywhere. And then like the third floor was more for women, right? And so that was really fascinating, right? And, you know, everybody was welcome to watch, but like you know, it was pretty much only women were playing. And that was super fascinating because like I learned so much watching another woman's pleasure. Right? Like I can remember you know, watching a woman for the first time. It was the first time I'd ever really seen a woman, not on screen, but in real life, you know, and her face and her noise and her body. I was like, wow, you know, it impacted me, and it turned me on, and it showed me what was possible. Like I had no idea what was possible with my body. You know, up until then, I was kind of a little under the sheet, kind of like.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of like tension in that.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, like you're right. It is very beautiful. And there's this aspect where like when you're trying to catch it on film, it just seems pornographic, even if it's one of those authentic moments where you're like, oh yeah, okay, that was a real orgasm. Like there's just something removed from it.
You can't feel it. It's like
energetically.
Exactly. So fast forward for just a moment. So I used to do, and I still do, a practice called Orgasmic Meditation. And before COVID, so Orgasmic Meditation is a 15-minute practice. You've got a clitoris and a finger. And for 15 minutes, the finger is stroking the upper left-hand quadrant of the clitoris with no goal. Right? And it's literally thought of as a meditation practice. It's called Orgasmic Meditation. But before COVID, we used to practice in groups. And what was fascinating was being able to feel and literally get on the ride of another woman's orgasm. Right? And the amazing thing about this is it's like, you don't have to be turned on to do this practice. You can be sleepy, angry, hungry, any of these things. But feeling that feeling, and especially in a group, it's going to change your experience because, again, we're impacted. We are wired to be impacted with each other.
That's real. That's real. I went to this chiropractor that was, I forget the exact term, but it was kind of like somatic something where they just do like interesting little light touch and then like train your spine to align itself. Really powerful. So my chiropractor actually did group sessions where there were like 6 tables and people would rotate in and out. And as you were going through this process, like it was like I could feel each person shift and like their energy in their body becoming aligned and succinct and like all their breakthroughs. And it was a really emotional experience. I'm just saying, definitely check out chiropractic. In whatever form you like. But yeah, it was so yummy to be a part of that exchange in a non-sexual manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, this is why we need community. This is why we need community that is going to not just hold us up, but also be like, babe, you might want to check that, right? Because I'm so excited about this conversation. I'm having a hard time with my metaphors, but I'm thinking something rises all tide, high tide rises all boats or something like that. But literally it's like, when you're in community and you've got people around you that are willing to be impacted by you and willing to say, I love where you're at. And, I celebrate you.
Yeah, that was beautiful. To be willing to be impacted. Thank you for that. Wow. Okay, so, when you're like, I felt that, I was impacted. Oh, okay. So let's talk about the resources and the things you offer so that people can find you and continue engaging with your work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. So, I didn't actually give a great description about how amazing Bondassage is, but I work with couples, helping them to work through some of their sexual differences using touch, using bondage, using sensual deprivation and sensation play. That's one of the things I'm up to in the world. I'm a Bondassage trainer. I also, as you mentioned, lead Tantra Seed Date, which is amazing. If you are in the Bay Area, actually, we're in 21 cities now. So if you're in any of the cities that we are in, please, and you are not happy with your dating experience, please check out Tantra Seed Date, because it is truly a way in which you can improve your dating experience. Whether you meet your person there or not, you will be impacted, and you will take that juice and that joy out into the world, and you will attract what you are looking for.
I love that. And is that information available on your website?
That is on my website, and I believe you've got a link for that.
Yes, it's in the description and the comments.
And then last but not least, I have, I'm creating a program that I'm calling Master Your Domain. It is about mastering your energetics, and also really being able to live into your desire. God, there's so much good stuff to talk about. We didn't even go there.
We like the words like desire. Keep going.
Oh my God. So desire is your fuel, right? You get your energy, you get your container, you get your presence together, and then you start listening to your desire, right? What is that thing that's whispering in your ear? What is that little voice that's like, this is waiting for you. This is your experience. Anyway, so
this would be nice.
Yes. And then last but not least, check out the Better Sex podcast. It is in the embryonic stage, but we are out there and we're working on it.
Yes, coming to a live screen near you.
Near you, absolutely. Coming to your ear, to an ear near you.
I like it.
To say, one of the things I really love about podcasts is the sensual experience of having somebody, creating that oral experience for you. And it's a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, I love your work. I cannot wait to get into some of those classes and just be a part of what you do. Thank you for being on the show. This is incredible.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I really so appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you and just, to play with you. Like it is, where we got on this morning, where we were then and where we are now, it's just a much more up and celebrated place. And I think that's really part of your gift in the world. So thank you so much. Thank you for for creating the space. And I'm so happy to be your it girl today.
Yes. Love that. That stays. Oh, everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us today. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Join us for the Healing Through Pleasure series coming up this March with Queen Reverend Mutima Imani and spiritual guide Asara Sahai. That's going to be a 6-week online journey that will allow you to discover the power of your erotic energy and expand your pleasure. You can get tickets on Eventbrite and learn more at nikashirelles.com. Please post your questions and comments every time we air or send them right to me at nikashirelles@gmail.com. All right. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you here next week.